Hello everyone. Have you thought of or heard about noncancerous tumors or neurofibromatosis type 1 and NF1? Welcome to your own channel ADP for learning. Today, we will dig deep into neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 disorder by addressing critical questions like what is neurofibromatosis type 1, NF1? Which gene is affected in neurofibromatosis type 1, NF1? What are the features or symptoms of neurofibromatosis type 1, NF1? And last, how can we manage or treat neurofibromatosis type 1, NF1? So, without further delay, let's start with our first question. What is neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 disorder? The NF1 gene was first identified as the cause of neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 disorder in 1990. Over 1,600 different neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 causing versions of this gene have been found. Neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 affects about 1 out of every 3,000 people. Neurofibromatosis was first described in medical literature by Dr. Friedrich von Recklinghausen. For many years, it was called von Recklinghausen's disease. Neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 have noncancerous tumors called neurofibromas. Some people with NF1 have a few of these tumors, and some have thousands. The tumors can be anywhere on the body. Most commonly, they grow on or just underneath the skin, but they can also form in the brain and peripheral nerves, and in the eyes. So that leads to an important question. Which gene is affected in neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1? The affected gene, also called NF1, codes for a protein called neurofibromin. People with NF1 have an altered form of the gene, and so they make a form of the protein that does not do its job. Neurofibromin protein is active in nerve tissue. Its job is to control how often these cells divide to make more cells. It works by deactivating a protein called RAS. When RAS is active, cells divide quickly. When RAS is inactive, cells divide slowly. People with NF1 make a form of neurofibromin that deactivates RAS poorly or not at all. Cells divide more often than they should, and the extra cells form tumors. Having just one non-working copy of neurofibromin is enough to cause NF1. That means that people with NF1 have one working copy of the gene, and they do make some neurofibromin protein that does its job. But they do not make enough to be able to fully control cell division. NF1 follows an autosomal dominant inheritance pattern. About half of the time, people with NF1 inherit a non-working copy of the NF1 gene from an affected parent. The rest of the time, there is no family history of the disease. Rather, a new mutation in the NF1 gene happens either in the child's parents during egg or sperm production, or soon after fertilization. In either case, the person with NF1 can pass the non-working gene, and the condition, to their children. New mutations in NF1 happen fairly often because the gene is large, making it more likely that a mutation will happen. That leads to another critical question. What are the symptoms and features of neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 disorder? Most people with NF1 have distinctive café au lait spots, that is the color of coffee with milk, as well as freckles. People get more café au lait spots and freckles as they get older. People with NF1 also have noncancerous tumors called neurofibromas throughout their body. Rarely, these tumors can progress into harmful cancers. Less common features include high blood pressure, problems with the bones, curvature of the spine, that is scoliosis, learning challenges, growths on the iris of the eye, that is Lisch nodules, and noncancerous tumors on the optic nerve between the eye and the brain, that is optic gliomas. Some tumors, even when noncancerous, can cause vision loss or hearing loss. NF1 can look very different between individuals. The effects depend in part on the specific gene variation that a person has. But they also vary among family members who have the same NF1 gene variation. Scientists don't know exactly why the effects of NF1 vary so much. But they think that the environment plays a role, as well as other genes besides NF1. Scientists call these modifier genes, and they could be any of the thousands of genes in the human genome. Modifier genes may code for proteins that interact directly with neurofibromin or play a role in the same cellular processes. So at last the question may come to your mind: how to manage or treat neurofibromatosis type 1 or NF1 disorder? Most of the time, NF1 does not have life-threatening medical effects. Surgery can reshape bones and remove tumors. Bumps and spots can be removed to help people feel about their appearance, or if they interfere with daily functions. And everyone with NF1 should be monitored for cancer, learning disabilities, and other issues. Thank you for joining me on this fantastic journey of learning. We will again meet with new innovative topics. Meanwhile, if you have any doubts or feedback, please comment below.